Hi there. My name is Crozer and I teach English at Los Angeles Mission College. Today I'm going to share my capstone project with you. I chose to focus on three criteria of the OEI rubric, A1, A2, and A3. They deal with placement of objectives, clarity of objectives, and alignment of objectives. The class I chose to focus on was creative writing, and you can see the college's SLO for the class listed here. Now, in order to get these to unit objectives, I had to follow a key process. Backward design. I went from the SLOs to creating units to creating unit objectives. So, first I created 6 units for my creative writing class, and for this presentation, I'll focus on Unit 3, short stories. Then I created unit objectives, and I did my best to write these in student-friendly language. Finally, I made sure to demonstrate connections between my content and these objectives. So I did this by connecting each resource and activity to the unit's objective, matching A3 exemplary, and placing unit objectives at the beginning of the unit, and introducing each activity with information about which objective it addresses. That was my attempt to address A1 exemplary. So let's jump in and look at week 7, which is my third and final week in the short stories unit. Let's go. Okay, you are now looking at my 7th module, which you can see is called the short story: developing setting. Now, I've put the unit introduction here just so I can show you, but this would normally go at the beginning of week 5. As you can see, I welcome the students to the unit, I tell them the 3 objectives, and then to get them motivated, I explain what a short story is and what real-world benefits they might get. Moving forward, let's look at the introduction to week 7. So here I've explained the reading, and right away, again, I explain which of those 3 unit objectives we're dealing with. And this week, the focus is on actually writing that original masterful short story. I give them a little bit of motivation, make sure I've used accessible headings, and move on to the next thing. Here, I give them some short story instructions. They should have already read these, but I ask them to review it as they're editing. I remind them again of how this is going to help meet their objectives of writing an original story. The next page has to do with how to elevate setting. And here I connect this to how this can help them create a well-developed setting for a masterful short story. Then I give them a try this exercise, which is basically like a journal entry where they get to write about one of several different topics. Again, I try to connect this to my objective of helping them write an original short story and explain why this kind of journaling is useful. Next, I share a TED Talk, and I explain what I want them to look for and why I think this connects to our overall objective of writing an original story. Then we move to a discussion. And again, I explain to them that this will help them with the week's objective, writing and revising their own short story. In this discussion, they will imagine alternate endings to stories that they have already read. Then I have some advice on editing your short story. Again, I connect to the objectives and say this is a key component of writing a masterful short story. Then, for revision support, I have them pick a resource. I keep explaining that these masterful, excellent short stories must be refined and revised. Then I have an optional page on student support services for writing at my school. And then finally, we arrive at the summative assessment, the short story final draft, which I set up according to the @1 assessment class that I took a couple weeks ago. Due date, assignment overview, with again, these objectives, learning goal, the main objective, the instructions, and the rubric. And this was how I made an attempt to connect all of my things in this module to the unit objectives. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.